Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into a huge challenge for anyone working with AI. How in the world do you update a live agent without causing chaos for your users? Let's break down how Amazon Bedrock gives you a really powerful and, more importantly, a really safe way to do it.
All right, let's just dive right in. I want you to picture this. Your AI agent is live, right? It's out there serving thousands, maybe millions of users. You've just built this amazing new feature, but you're sweating it because one wrong move, one bad update, and the whole thing could just fall apart. So how do you roll out those cool new changes with confidence?
And that is the core problem we're going to solve today. You see, it's this constant balancing act. You have to manage change safely and predictably in a live environment. You've got to innovate, you've got to push new features, but you also need things to be stable.
So what we really need is a way to separate our worlds. We need a development playground where we can try new things, a place to test them out, and a totally protected, stable environment for our actual users. And the way you do that is by having these stable, saved copies of your agent, and then a way to control exactly which users are talking to which copy.
Okay, so let's get into the two core ideas Amazon Bedrock gives us to solve this whole dilemma: versions and endpoints. Seriously, think of these as your safety toolkit for deploying AI.
First up, we've got versions. A version is basically a save point for your agent. When you create one, it takes a snapshot of everything, the entire setup, and just freezes it in time. The key word here is immutable. It cannot be changed. It's like a perfect, self-contained copy of your agent right at that moment.
And then we have endpoints. So if a version is the saved document, the endpoint is kind of like the shareable link to that document. It's just a pointer, an alias that you have total control over. You get to decide exactly which saved version that endpoint sends your users to.
Now this is where it gets really interesting, because this slide just lays it all out. Versions are the what. They're the static, saved work that gets created automatically every time you hit update. But endpoints are the where. They're the dynamic, manageable pointers that decide what your users actually get to see and use.
All right, let's see how this actually works, because the real magic here is how these two things play together. And to do that, we have to talk about one very special, totally automatic endpoint called default.
Okay, look at this. Every single time you update your agent, doesn't matter if it's the protocol, the container, the network settings, whatever, Bedrock automatically spits out a brand new version. And as you can see, that default endpoint immediately and automatically just snaps to point to that new, latest version.
And this, right here, this is the critical question. I mean, that automatic behavior is awesome for development, right? You always want to be testing the latest and greatest code. But for your production environment, no way, that is way too risky. You don't want your paying customers to basically be beta testers for some unproven version.
And this is the brilliant solution. You just create a custom endpoint, let's call it prod, and you point it at a nice stable version, like v2 here. Now, watch what happens. As you keep working, creating new versions like v3 and v4, the default endpoint keeps jumping to the latest one. But your prod endpoint, it stays safely locked onto v2. It is completely insulated from all your development work.
So the key takeaway is this: you are in the driver's seat. Once you've tested a new version and you're totally confident it's ready for prime time, you explicitly run a command just like this one to update your production endpoint. Only then, and not a second sooner, do your users get those new features. No surprises.
Okay, so we've got the strategy down pat. Now let's just take a quick look at the practical side of things, the lifecycle of an endpoint, and how you can manage your whole fleet of agents.
So your endpoints, they go through this really clear lifecycle. They start out as creating, and then they move to ready once they're live and good to go. When you push an update, they'll go into the updating state. This whole process gives you super clear visibility, and this is really important, if anything goes wrong, the status will flip to failed, so you're never ever left guessing.
And of course, you're never flying blind here. With a couple of really simple commands, you can get a full inventory of every single saved version and every single active endpoint you have. This gives you total visibility and, total control over your entire agent fleet.
We've covered a lot of ground, but if you remember just one thing from this entire explainer, I want it to be what's on this next slide. I mean it. This is the absolute core principle for doing safe AI deployments.
This is it. This is the golden rule. Use that fast-moving, always updating default endpoint for all your internal development and testing. But for your customers,
For your live production traffic, you always use a stable, custom endpoint that you update manually and deliberately. Trust me, this one rule will save you from so many headaches.
And that pretty much wraps it up. You see, this whole system of versions and endpoints, it's not just about preventing errors. It actually unlocks these powerful, sophisticated strategies. You can now design things like canary releases, where maybe you roll out a new version to just a small group of users first. Or you can do full-on blue-green deployments. The control is completely in your hands.